Today on the Topping Show Vivek on World Economic Forum, Anheuser Busch Stella Tweet is alcohol and interest free. Macy's to lay off 2,350 employees. Wendy's gets a former PepsiCo executive for their new CEO, and beds are being recalled due to the risk of collapse. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of Topping Show is sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice today. I say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, you see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, you can reach the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of January, so if you click that button, I'd really appreciate it. Now going over to the business part of the podcast, you have Macy's to lay off 2,350 jobs in a mix between both corporate as well as store customer-facing roles. Now this, as the economy becomes more and more precarious, no one knows what's going to happen with the election. A lot of businesses are pulling back on a lot of initiatives, and you have some companies that provide pretty much frivolous luxury goods you don't need, like Macy's. There's nothing you need at a Macy's store. They have some nice things, and I know they do a lot of advertising around cologne, which I suppose some people would purchase. Truth be told, how many years did my cologne bottle last? Maybe 15? Nevertheless, it's mostly luxury items you don't need to survive. Now, it looks like the breakdown between the employees, it looks like the layoffs represent a 3.5% of their total permanent workforce and 13% of its corporate staff. And that is going to be taking place specifically on January 26th. They are also going to be closing 5 stores. Now, they note that the retailer is also investing in improving visual merchandising in stores and upgrading its e-commerce experience. Layoffs come as Macy's president prepares to become the new CEO next month, and the company fights off a $5.8 billion buyout bid from activist investors. So, in terms of the timing of this, it's one of those things where if it had to be done, it was best done now, because the shareholders and most of the public, they're not going to blame the new CEO who hasn't officially started yet. So this is, you could kind of use the previous CEO as a little bit of a scapegoat or tack this onto their coattails to say, well, this is because of this person. You got this new person coming, they're going to revolutionize everything. They'll fix all your problems in theory. But, so there's a little silver lining there. It's also, start of a new year. So there's just a lot of companies that are struggling to begin with. And truth be told, I wonder what their stock is at these days. Granted, stock is always hindsight is always 2020, especially the stocks. That looks like last week went down about 6%. In the past month is down. So again, in case reference point, currently trading for $15.97 per share. Let me see here. Macy's. Wow. Where's that? Let's see here. CEO Jenny founded revenue 24.97 billion in 2019, which is actually pretty darn good. I'll go to Yahoo to get. No, actually no, I misspoke. This current trading price is $17.45 per share. Now in terms of the trend, zooming out, go to the 5. Oh geez Louise, the pop-ups never end. Let's see here. Macy's M. Macy's Inc. 1745. So the past month is down negative 13.87%. Past 6 months it actually went up a little bit by 7.25%. Year to date, granted it's only been a couple weeks, but nevertheless is down 11.369%. In the past 12 months, their stock went down by nearly a quarter at negative 23.4%. Then you go to 5-year trend, it's even worse, that's negative 31.6%. Interestingly enough, it looks like the stock is actually up. Historically speaking, the max is actually still up from the IPO. Looks like the first plot point you see is February 7th, 1992 at $7.81 per share. Let's see here. And so they've grown a little bit. Granted, they're definitely not in the S&P 500, to say the least. And it'll be interesting to see as all these retailers, retail is one of the most complex forms of business these days as e-commerce has taken over the world. And especially for luxury items, that's usually the first things that people pull back on because, again, you don't need new cologne for Macy's or a new whatever they also sell there, perhaps a new article of clothing. Truth be told, I'm one of those folks I prefer to buy, one or two suits to make them last forever. But nevertheless, that also begs the question, when was the last time you actually went to a Macy's store? And when was the last time there's a compelling reason for you to go there? Certainly, they have some exclusivity contracts with a couple of designers that might inspire people to go there, or maybe a couple of musician or artists. But I don't know. I can't help but think, what is the compelling reason for people to go to Macy's these days that you can't replicate another competitor or you can't buy somewhere else? So again, definitely not financial advice, but when it comes to the outlook for 2024 at Macy's, I'll be interested to see. You're going to have a new CEO, so granted, hopefully they have some new ideas. They'll be able to reinvigorate the company. But let's just say I'm pessimistic to say the least. This will be a good fiscal year for most businesses with so much economic uncertainty, so much inflation. And again, these are luxury items. You don't need anything there. So I would say the outlook for them is precarious to say the least. But yeah, let me know in the comments. When was the last time you actually went to Macy's and what did you buy there? I'm trying to remember. I've been inside of Macy's as a child. Truth be told, I'm trying to think if I ever bought anything. I did buy things from JCPenney as a child. But Macy's? Granted, I'm sure the core demographic is mostly female, and I certainly would think. But again, let me know what you went in there and bought, or if you just did a little window shopping. As always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting business news, you have Wendy's gets a new PepsiCo exec to become their CEO. Now this comes to us thanks to Amelia Lucas over at CNBC, and they note they are hiring the CEO in part to fight off activist pressure, which is something you're seeing more and more as a theme when we talk about publicly traded companies, whether it be Walt Disney, you have Tesla. There are many companies where if there are some activists or some investors who think the CEO is not doing their fiduciary responsibility or they're moving the company in the wrong direction, some activists will actually increase their footprint, or they'll increase rather their size and stake in the company so they can fight, excuse me, to get some more seats on the board of directors and help sway the direction of the company. And in some cases, you also have activist investors who just want to buy out the whole company as well, which is what Macy's actually is in risk of, and some other companies have been throughout the years. Now, it looks like the specific gentleman that's coming from PepsiCo is by the name of Kirk Tanner. And he spent more than 3 decades with PepsiCo. And that's probably the most successful beverage company right up there with Coca-Cola. Actually, now my ADHD knows no bounds. Now I'm curious. I would guess, does PepsiCo probably still have a big market cap because of the Frito-Lay? Because Pepsi stock, PepsiCo stock total value is $228 billion. And we go to Coca-Cola stock. Their current market value is, no way, $258.84 billion. So they are pretty darn close. Well, it's actually a little disappointing just with PepsiCo because, again, if you go to the grocery store, they own about 65% of the salty snack aisle. You just go down there and look at the little label at the back of most packaging when it comes to junk food, and you'll see if it doesn't say PepsiCo, it will say their address over in Texas. So I'm actually shocked. Even with the salty snacks, they're not beating Coca-Cola in terms of the total stock value and market cap. Now, that being said, the stock price is still triple. So Coca-Cola is at $57.87 per share, while PepsiCo is at $166.36 per share. And their dividend yield is darn near identical as well. So Coca-Cola is at 3.07, PepsiCo is at 3.04 dividend yield. But nevertheless, back to Wendy's, which, interestingly enough, you could also tie in because there's one of the suppliers is undoubtedly Coca-Cola or Pepsi. Now, let's see here. They know that recently Wendy's had taken over Burger King as the second largest burger chain in the U.S. by sales, right behind, of course, the big OG, McDonald's. Now, they also know that the chain has struggled with the slowdown in low-income consumer spending, which, again, there's also many issues with the cost of goods increasing and just the components of everything that you want to buy going up to record high inflation. You also have labor rates in some states. I forget if it's $20 or $26 per hour, but California is ridiculously increasing the wages for fast food workers, going against what the business industry, the government's dictating it. So that's going to kill the fast food categories in many states, I believe, long term. Because again, the purpose of fast food is fast and cheap. I mean, no one's going to McDonald's or Wendy's for 13 or I would say even $10 hamburger. I mean, truth be told, I might not be the authoritarian to speak about the taste of the product. Truth be told, I don't think I've had one of those for 20 years. But like, what's a Big Mac cost these days? And granted, okay, so the average cost is $5.58, which is actually up from $4.89 or 70 cents before Biden took office. There's actually a whole article that talks about the politics of foods, which perhaps we'll dive into at another time. But yeah, that's almost $6 because again, you got to pay sales tax. $6 for a hamburger. I mean, the dollar menu used to be a ruling billion-dollar idea. But yeah, Wendy's has had to increase their price like they all have. Now, going back to the experience of Kirk Tanner, it looks like that'll be effective February 5th, so right around the corner. And this is as Wendy's wants to try to boost its share price and ease pressure from activist investors, which also begs the questions, what is Wendy's stock price? $19.34 per share compared to, geez Louise, hindsight's always 2020. McDonald's is trading for $300.21 for a single share. McDonald's market cap is $217.78 billion. Wendy's market cap, oh geez Louise. That is night and day, which also shows you the difference between a real estate company and a fast food company. Read one of Ray Kroc's books to, well, that's not really a joke, more of a funny observation of how McDonald's really makes money. So McDonald's, the whole company, the whole market cap of McDonald's is $217.78 billion. That's the value of all the stock out there. Juxtapose that with Wendy's. Wendy's is worth $3.99 billion, which is astronomically low. Now, of course, we have to check really quick what's Burger King stock, or are they privately held? Because I know they were bought out a couple years ago by Restaurant Concepts is the actual legal name behind it. So I think they are no longer on it. Let's double check though. Burger King stock. They're owned by Restaurant Brands International, which A+ for marketing. At least you know what they're doing. So Restaurant Brands International. Now, granted, that's a little. They own multiple brands, so it's difficult to say what the actual value is for that specific intellectual property and business that they own. But even then, Restaurant Brands International is trading for $76.64 per share. It looks like their market cap is $34 billion. So Wendy's definitely has some improvement. Now, again, we're going back to the Wendy's, the 5-year trend for Wendy's. It has gone up by 13%, so at least it's not negative. Go back to the 1-year trend for Wendy's. The 1-year trend is down at 12.85%. Year to date, granted, it's only been a couple weeks, but only down 0.15%. 6 months, Wendy's is down 10.8%. And then the past month is down 4%. And last week is down about 1%. So not the best. Although they do pay dividends. It's got a pretty good dividend yield at 5.17%. Granted, definitely not financial advice because, again, hindsight's always 2020 when it comes to these things. And truth be told, I recommend people just invest in themselves because that's the ultimate gamble of starting a business, which statistically speaking will not always do good. It's a tough thing to do, but if you make it, grind and work like hell, you can achieve great things. But I digress. Going back to Mr. Kirk Tanner's experience, Tanner is currently the head of Pepsi's North American beverage business. Prior to his time at the company's drink unit, he spent 3 years leading Pepsi's global food service division. In total, he spent more than 3 decades at Pepsi. The outgoing Wendy CEO, Todd Penegor, has been at the helm of the company since 2016. Under his leadership, Wendy successfully launched its breakfast menu nationwide, helping the company overtake Burger King as the second largest U.S. burger chain by sales. Definitely not by market cap. But nevertheless, they also know that the chain also faced some setbacks during this tenure. Low-income consumers have cut back on their spending at Wendy's, and a large franchise declared bankruptcy in November. See here? Because again, these are an overwhelming majority of these stores are owned by mom and pops and individual businesses who buy franchises. That's actually how Burger King made headlines earlier this week when they made news that they were going to buy about 600 stores. So Burger King, the parent company, they're going to buy 600 stores from the individual owners or the businesses who owns, or actually, sorry, it's one large business that owned many stores, 600 to be exact, for about $1 billion. They're going to buy them, revamp them, fix them up, and then their long-term plan is to resell them. And you see this with most restaurants. It is a franchise model with only a couple exceptions where the parent company owns a majority of the stores. Now, it looks like shares of, they talk about the market cap was dragged down to 3.97 billion. They also know that, excuse me, apologies. Activist investor Blackwell's Capital is planning to challenge Wendy's board. According to Reuters, the CEO transition could change the firm's mind, but if Blackwell's nominates its own board members, it's kicking off a fight with yet another activist investor, Nelson Putz, who is a chair of Wendy's board. And he is perhaps famously known for turning around many brands, including Dr. Pepper, which I was going to say, Keurig Dr. Pepper is now one of the largest companies on the planet. When they built out Dr. Pepper and Snapple groups so big, they were actually bought out by Keurig, which was really known for those silly pods, but that changed the world, created a whole category. But he is known for getting businesses out of politics as well as turning businesses around. You see his name in the headlines a lot these days when it comes to these involvement with Disney. And Nelson Putz is trying to buy out more and more shares of Disney to try to gain control of the company and remove them from doing things like sexualizing children and inserting morally vacuous materials, thereby alienating, on average, about 50% of the prospective clients. They also note that a year ago, Peltz dropped an effort by his firm, Trian Fund Management, to acquire the company, signaling the confidence in his performance as Peltz pursued a proxy fight with Disney. Trian has been an investor in Wendy's since 2005. Wendy's is expected to release its Q4 earnings February 15th. Let's see. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, there's no statistical way I could think, there's no way the math works out where they could actually overtake McDonald's. Let me know in the comments if you think differently. But it'll be interesting to see if they're able to continue to boost their sales and regain some of that market share for the lower income folks. I mean, the only way you can conceivably do that these days, I think, is going to be ramping up automation, trying to either become your own supplier for some of the components, or in this case, we would call them ingredients, to try to decrease those costs, which, again, there's a big upfront investment. But yeah, trying to lower the price point in fast food is becoming more and more difficult as you've had also increased regulation, you have increased labor laws, and you get to the point where an employee can only have X amount of productivity, and the price point, you go negative pretty quick. So let me know in the comments. I mean, Wendy's, I don't know, they always, to me, I'm trying to think as a kid, they're always respected, but they had the shtick of the cool square hamburger patty, which was good marketing and got your attention. It is different, but yeah, it's one of those things where my sister liked Wendy's, but like my dad, there were a couple folks I knew who were kind of diehard Wendy's fans, but the usual consensus was if you wanted the fastest and the cheapest, you'd go McDonald's. If you wanted something, what was Burger King known for? Because they had cool plastic toys back in the day. But yeah, the identity of Wendy's was a little bit more fresh. I mean, they used to have products like chili and a couple other things that would kind of make it stand out from the crowd. But they kind of struggled with their identity lately. So it'll be interesting to see how can they continue this increase in sales and what can they do to regain some of those customers. And again, acquiring a customer back is one of the most difficult things to do in sales and business. But as I always say, time shall tell. Now, going over to the Cultural Power Podcast, you have Anheuser Busch Stella Tweet is alcohol-free and mostly interest-free. Now, this comes from, again, they have multiple beer brands. They own over 40 brands, truth be told. And I think they're kind of seeing the writing on the wall, or the elephant in the room, or perhaps more accurately, the Dylan Mulvaney in the room. Some would argue just as scary as an elephant, but nevertheless, Bud Light last year, they lost about 30% of their sales every week, and about 26% of the sales by volume. So Bud Light's, that brand has been hit pretty hard. And that when we thought the boycott might end, no, it's not. So you have all these marketing dollars. Where do you put it? Probably not prudent that they paid $100 million to the UFC to try to get some customers back with the Bud Light. Thus far, I haven't seen those sales figures change. So where else could they put money at? Well, Stella's something. I mean, most people don't know they even own it. It sounds fancy. I think it's from, what's the brand originate from? Maybe Italy? But nevertheless, they also have the non-alcoholic beverage industry. So a lot of these beer companies and these alcohol companies are actually coming out with alcohol-free versions, which not only do you have the low-quality taste, but you also have, you will no longer become inebriated. Now, granted, some might argue with Anheuser Busch products, the taste is so visually disgusting, you may very well still become inebriated because it'd be so disgusting, your mind might be blown or something to that effect. So perhaps there'll be some semblance of that. But this is a big trend. Non-alcoholic beverages is one of the fastest growing categories in the beverage industry. And it looks like they're going to try to gain some of that market share. Now, I guess it's not a very inspirational ad. Now, Anheuser-Busch, this is again from the parent company, their profile, it's not the individual profile of Stella, and they say, quote, the star emoji of January. And it's a picture of a bottle of Stella. Hilariously, there's a small disclaimer text that's really pathetically, it's supposed to be like a legal disclaimer, I suppose, but it's not bold, so you would not know, you wouldn't see this text unless you're looking for it. And the text actually says, message for 21 plus, which is hilariously ironic because Anheuser-Busch wanted to try to sell alcohol to children because they hired Dylan Mulvaney for $185,000, and Dylan's profile in terms of the TikTok interaction is mostly children. And Bud Light, they said, hey, hold our can and do 2 pictures and a video. We think it'd be great for our brand. Which I'm actually shocked they weren't sued in any capacity by the U.S. government because, again, you have to be 21 plus to buy alcohol products. And yet, they hired a brand ambassador whose main demographic is people under 21. Same with the platform of TikTok where Dylan has rose into fame. That whole platform is mostly people under 21. So I was still astonished there wasn't some lawsuit around that, but they just, I guess, slipped through the cracks or just shows a priority or the political allegiances of the government. Now, there's that small disclaimer again. It's like gray font in front of the gray blurred out part of the picture. So the main picture is a picture of a bottle of Stella Ortiz. And again, I'm not a big beer aficionado. I might be butchering that name. And the top of the bottle says Anno 1360 something. Maybe that was when it started. And the bottle says Liberty and it says alcohol free 0.0%. So I mean, I don't know who's buying this. Maybe this is their shtick to try to gain the child market. I guess. I mean, there are a lot of adults who are moving away from alcohol, but depending on how they push marketing for these products, it's not inconceivable they could get in trouble like the tobacco industry when they had Joe Camel as a mascot, which they were sued and they were accused of marketing towards children. Now, again, this beer bottle looks exactly the same. There's just that little extra font that says alcohol-free 0.0%. And in terms of building brand allegiance, maybe. And again, more and more adults are not drinking it. But then again, you could say that with tobacco companies having flavored vaping stuff. Well, they're worried about kids buying it. A lot of adults are doing it as well. But nevertheless, whatever it is, it's uninspiring. So I was surprised they actually didn't use a sports balls figure or a country music fan or a horse or a veteran, which used to be the core advertising for Anheuser-Busch. It worked for eons, decades upon decades. This is just a picture of a bottle of Stella, not really beer, it's nothing, it's 0.0%. And no one saw or cared about it, which is why I thought it was kind of hilarious from a marketing perspective, because presumably they paid someone to take this picture, and they paid an intern or perhaps someone to post this. And again, they say it's the start of January. Well, why? Is it because they're trying to, because it's supposed, I know it's trending like a sober January, a dry January is trending, but I'm surprised they don't say that in the text. Or like, they didn't say like, to celebrate this dry January or anything like that, this is why we invented or we're promoting this product. They just say it's the start of January, which, again, you're not educating the consumer because, again, there's a lot of people that don't realize that's a social media trending thing in terms of dry January being a thing. And I guess that's why the star, I mean, it's certainly not the star by sales. We can agree on that. It's never been the largest seller in their portfolio. And I just can't believe how few people saw it. So, again, this is a multi-billion-dollar international business with, actually curious, what's the total number of followers for the specific parent company, Anheuser-Busch, on X Twitter. I mean, they've got 64,000 followers, which, again, for a multi-billion-dollar business, that's pretty pathetic. But nevertheless, that's a lot of followers. So they have 64,000 followers, and yet, for this particular tweet, only, and again, this isn't, 2 minutes. I'm not taking these statistics and writing them down 2 minutes after they post it. This was literally 24 hours for these numbers to get here. And I was going to say, I know it's a couple days later, but this has had time to brew, pun moderately intended. Or does it still brew if there's no alcohol? Nevertheless, this only got 1,661 views and 18 likes, which is nothing. I mean, not to brag, but I did get 13 likes on one of my videos last week. Granted, I would also argue they're, in terms of quality over quantity, they're the awesomest people in the world who like these videos, which is why every time someone comments or they like it, I'm especially appreciative. And granted, it might take me a day or two, depending on work schedule, to respond to the comments, but I always appreciate the feedback and the likes. Friendly reminder to like the video as well, right now, or in a couple seconds, at your leisure. And again, they only got 18 likes for this, which is nearly unfathomable, almost as popular as Chris Christie's, some might argue, and as healthy. Now, that's not bad enough, if that isn't bad enough, rather. They only got 4 comments, which, not to brag, but I did get 8 comments on a video a couple weeks back, and they're highly entertaining and interesting. But they only got 4? And I suspect, can't help but think, there's going to be the usual breakdown of one being spam, one being someone who just wants free stuff, one critiquing them, and one random. But let's dive in and find out. Now, going to the comments section, which they only show one before you have to click show more replies. That's not a good sign. The first one that you can see is from Florida Boy, who, I'll say alleged Florida Boy, because he did not use an orange, and the little name, the little orange emoji is not present in his name. The picture looks like it's a lake. So no oranges or alligators in the profile picture. But this alleged Florida Boy simply says, nope. And that got 1 like. Someone by the name of Katzengewer, KTG44, replied saying, quote, "Go to hell, you'll never get another penny from me," unquote. It is a picture of looks like a gentleman who's been a troll, and it has the trans flag color scheme in his hair. The cartoon does not note the pronouns. I have no idea what it is or is not. And they're on a laptop. And that did get 1 like. Let's see here. Stifrey says, quote, "I'll be damned. Thank you for supporting good folks like Strickland and MMA," unquote. Which you might think is a compliment. However, not really, since Sean Strickland is, as the youth might call him, very based in his assessments when he's saying, reporters are asking him gotcha questions about things like sexual orientation. You have teachers, government. They're asking him a lot of questions that have nothing to do with hitting people in the head. I was about to say the 2x4. I don't think they've advanced that far in the UFC yet. Be more entertaining, but nevertheless, well, actually, they did merge with the WWE, so maybe it's not inconceivable. But all that aside, he's been roasting reporters, as the youth might say, and he's been almost pressuring Bud Light, because he's saying all these things, and then Bud Light is sponsoring the MMA, and the shtick is Bud Light is approving what he's saying. Bud Light has not spoken against Sean Strickland, which I was very surprised. I thought they would have some type of public statement saying, we respect the individual rights of our, they're not their employees, they're not even contractors, but we respect the fighters of the UFC with their freedom of speech. Something, they didn't say anything at all. So they're completely ignoring this elephant in the room, or the Sean Strickland in the room. But nevertheless, that's not really a compliment. So, again, 3 for 3, all pejorative or poking fun at Anheuser Busch. So, not doing so great. The fourth and final comment, and geez Louise, there's almost as empty as Chris Christie's fan base, but nevertheless, this comes from Scott, and Scott says, quote, "Strickland owns your woke asses," unquote. And is a picture, of Sean Strickland holding a belt with the big UFC logo on it. And that did get 1 like. So again, as youth might say, they had a epic fail, but yeah, all 4 comments. So 4 for 4, all negative and roasting Anheuser-Busch. And again, this is a brand that, I mean, they own 40 plus brands, but I don't think it's really well known. Truth be told, I think I've seen sell at 1 or 2 parties throughout my lifetime. Granted, it's a small sample size. Some people in the comments might argue due to me not going to a lot of parties, but nevertheless, I haven't seen really any of it, and never really seen anyone order it at a restaurant. So it'll be interesting to see. They're trying to focus on other brands. I think we're going to see more of this, but I think more and more people are also starting to go on the interwebs and saying, well, what 40 plus brands does Anheuser-Busch InBev own? if they are a true believer of the Bud Light boycott, will that continue into the other brands that they subsequently own? Who knows? You might very well have Dom Toretto on Fast and Furious. Maybe he's going to drink a Modelo this time instead of the Corona, which I was going to say, in terms of brand placement and marketing, previously that was probably one of the most successful plugs. That's been in there since the first movie, eons ago, when you actually had the OG Paul Walker acting in the films. They just degraded into, rudimentary acting and no character growth and just basically low budget. There's allegedly a human who writes scripts for Fast and Furious movies. I can't fathom who. I suspect it's really just an AI amalgamation of just random stuff that happens like in the Family Guy. But nevertheless, that was a very successful brand placement. And I suspect that would also increase the sales because, again, it's a huge cult following. But for for this with Stella, I mean, it's not entertaining. It's not that interesting. It's letting you know about a product that, again, that doesn't have alcohol. And they just say it's the star of January. Like, they don't really tell you why it's a star. You have to do a double take, I think, to actually read the alcohol-free part. Again, the biggest part of the logo, again, this is a picture of the logo on a bottle of beer, or not beer, where we call it non-alcoholic beer. It does say Liberty alcohol-free, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, at the end of the day, is this going to boost their sales? I would have to say someone at the Bud Light headquarters or the Anheuser Busch headquarters, if they're gambling and playing around with that magic 8-ball, I'd say the outlook is still not so good. Now going over to the cultural part of the podcast, or rather the political part of the podcast. Again, I am not a doctor. However, if you click the subscribe button, it very well may assist with my speaking ineptitudes. As the story, or as the show has gone longer and longer and we've done more and more episodes, it's slowly increased. There's been a modicum of improvement, as have the increase in the number of subscribers, and I suspect there's a correlation there. So if you click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. So again, apologies. Going to the political part of the podcast, you have Vivek Ramaswamy on the World Economic Forum going viral on X Twitter. And this again comes from Vivek's individual X Twitter profile, and he was on Fox Business a couple days ago, and the statistics for this were all written 24 hours after it was posted. So again, there's no gotcha question or no gotcha, oh hey, you only got 2 views after 18 minutes. Well, obviously it takes time. Now, it's a quick little 2.5 minute clip, and before the clip, Vivek says on text, quote, "The World Economic Forum is really just an old world Europe rearing its ugly head again. We fought a revolution in 1776 to say hell no to the old world vision. It's time we say so again. Self-governance over autocracy." These ways. Again, my speaking ineptitude sometimes no bounds. He says, "Self-governance over aristocracy is what makes America great," unquote. And again, within 24 hours, it's got 1.3 million views and 31,000 likes. So as youth might say, it went viral to say the least. Although I don't think the youth really snaps their fingers anymore. Truth be told, I don't really know anyone who does. But nevertheless.
They're demanding, you're going to love this, Vivek, they are demanding that we have an international criminal court prosecution of, wait for it, something called ecocide. Ecocide. This is coming out of Davos. Ecocide. Now, I don't know what they think they're talking about. Mr. Trump or President Trump will never buy into that. What does this crowd want? Everything they want. Global warming, John Kerry, it's freezing out in Iowa. Nobody seems to understand that. Big government solutions, big corporate solutions, not small government, small business, entrepreneurial solutions. You know, Vivek, if you stay with Trump and you go into his government, I want you to go after Davos. You're going to be the special emissary to go to Davos and quiet that crowd down. I won't say blow them up because that would be wrong, but quiet them down or give them a facelift or do something.
We're not going to quiet them down. We're going to shut them down. That's what we're going to do, Larry. And I think that you ask what's motivating them. Yeah. Here's the answer, Larry. It's just like every 3-letter agency here. We should think about ATF, CDC, Department of Education. That's a 3-letter multilateral institution, WEF. My answer to all of them with acronyms is shut them down. What they want is old world Europe. You ask what they want. It's actually a revival of old world monarchy that was skeptical of self-governance. That's what King George believed. That's what the kings of old world Europe believed. And we fought a revolution in 1776 to say that for better or worse, we the people, the citizens of this nation, engage in self-governance. We're the ones who decide how we fight climate change, whether or how we fight racism or is. We the people make those decisions at the ballot box, not in the mountaintops of Davos. This is that ugly monster of the old world rearing its head again in the avatar of Klaus Schwab and Larry Fink and the others who speak that old world vision. And we should say absolutely no to that vision. We're a self-governing constitutional republic. That's what it means to be an American. And that's what it means to stand for our 1776 ideals in this country. And you have my word, I will stop at nothing. You know, talking about peaceful means, of course, but stop at nothing, legally and otherwise, to make sure that these people are put back in their place and we have true sovereignty in the United States of America.
Yeah, I was going to say, it is quite concerning, and many people would say scary. They have unelected bureaucrats across the globe that want to control everything you do day to day and prosecute you. Now, perhaps I'm alone in this assessment, but let's go to the comments and see what the top folks are saying. Mr. Paul Suzupa says, quote, WEF is a bunch of unelected, out-of-the-touch globalists who have no place dictating anything to anyone, especially considering their hypocrisy where they talk about climate change yet fly private planes everywhere they go. The U.S. shouldn't waste time with the WEF or UN either, unquote. They got 207 likes. Nate Butika says, quote, Vivek has done humanity a tremendous service with his relentless effort to educate the public. Far more are aware of what we now face, of the importance of this moment in the eternal struggle between good and evil as a result of his choices, his words, and his actions. Unquote, getting 214 likes. Joel Fisher says, quote, I love Vivek more and more, so to the point, he truly loves America, unquote, getting 145 likes. We the World comes in saying, quote, Indians didn't fight in the American Revolution, and globalism has nothing to do with the old Europe, unquote. That got 382 likes, and more of a contrarian statement. Sam Rigo says, quote, all the WEF wants is control and power. It's why they are limiting the food supply and why they plan to move everyone into smart cities, unquote, getting 18 likes. And quite concerning when you see governments seizing the means of production, especially for the food. I was going to say, I know public schools in the United States no longer teach history for the most part, but if you read history books, that's usually when the most evil, most morally vacuous things happened. Nevertheless, back to the comments section. God and Country says, quote, that's the Vivek we all know and love. I'm glad you're still allowed to speak the truth with the MAGA camp, unquote, getting 99 likes. Leanne Carson says, quote, I really love this man. Every single word he says is like a bullet, unquote, getting 94 likes. Cal Reese, dun 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 dun. Again, if you do not, it is fascinating how vital and important soundtracks are and sound effects are for movies. If you don't know that movie, I'm sorry, I can't help you, or the name as well. But Cal Reese says, quote, Millie said that said what needed to be said their day. That's a good start to letting them know their ideas are terrible, unquote, getting 70 likes. See, Vivek Ramaswamy quotes, A+ for marketing. The profile picture is in fact of Vivek Ramaswamy. It is also a quote. The quote goes, excuse me, our movement must live on. America didn't start in 2006. America first didn't start in 2016. It started in 1776. We owe it to our founding fathers to do the right thing for our country, unquote, getting 55 likes. Baz says, quote, you're so right. Did anyone ever vote Klaus into public office? No, unquote, getting 49 likes. Let's see. Benjamin Hinson said, quote, in 1776, we had to clean house. The house is filthy again, unquote, getting 31 likes. Clark simply says, F the World Economic Forum, unquote, getting 47 likes. Asian Jesus says, quote, Vivek is mainly on steroids, unquote, getting 21 likes. So, yeah, looks like only one or two contrarian statements with an overwhelming majority absolutely positive about Vivek and his movement and assisting Trump. Again, at the end of the day, it'll be fascinating to see in what capacity does he continue to be a part of the Trump campaign and what kind of position does he get at the end of the day and where might he be most successful. And let me know in the comments, are you concerned about the ever-increasing power of unelected agencies and governments throughout the world and organizations that have more and more of an impact and control on your day-to-day life? As always, be fascinated here. what you have to say. Now going over to the business blunder of the day, you have beds being recalled because they actually cause injury. It looks like about 580,000 beds are being recalled. Now this is thanks to Business Insider NPR, and they note that more than 500,000 beds sold at retailers like Walmart and Wayfair are under recall because they can break during use, which has resulted in dozens of injuries, which that's not great. They perhaps did not take into account the American waistline or the weight and making it more rigid. Now, they noted that the recall impacts several different models and sizes of upholstered, low-profile, standard, and platform beds from Home Design Inc. The Silver Lake. What? The Silver Lake. That bed better float. But nevertheless, they note that Silver Lake, Indiana-based furniture wholesaler, says it has received 128 reports of these beds, quote, breaking, sagging, or collapsing when used, including 36 unspecified injuries to date. Let's see here. Now, they note that consumers can identify if their bed is being recalled by checking the list of impacted models and corresponding part number, which can be found on both the CSBC's Thursday recall notice last week and the Home Design website. To receive the free repair kit, you'll need to email Home Design photos of your bed and proof of purchase, as well as the headboard's, quote, law label. The recalled beds, which are really manufactured in Malaysia, were sold at Wayfair, Walmart, and Overstock.com between July 2018 and November 2023, with a price ranging from $100 to $300. They also know that the recall impacts more than 527 home design beds in the U.S. and nearly 56,000 in Canada. And it is a little unfortunate to see more and more manufacturing defects due to low quality materials. And it is at the end of the day because Americans there are certain price points you just kind of have to hit in order to have a product move in the United States. And the upside is there hasn't been any detrimental injuries, which again, that would be a kind of a high bar. That'd be highly improbable for that to happen to a bed. But still, to have people getting injured at all, that's definitely not good PR. And I suppose the silver lining might be it probably won't be too detrimental because they sound like they're more aggressive price point entry level products, which more often than not, there's not a lot of brand allegiance, so to say. You're mainly buying it because it's the lowest price bed or lowest price option. I don't think a lot of people will, the brand, whatever it is, slapped on the box, I don't think that'll be tarnished too much. But at the end of the day, they still had a recall of over 500,000 beds because they didn't use the right materials, or in this case, perhaps they just didn't reinforce certain areas of the bed, because it does sound like there's a quick fix, so they could mail you a kit to reinforce it. But still, to have such a big, massive recall, and it's even hitting some of the biggest retailers in the world, that's not going to make consumers happy, so they may even start to look elsewhere. So needless to say, to design a bed that can't do the only thing it's supposed to do and have such a big recall for 500,000 units, that is certainly the business blunder of the day. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Again, we're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of January, so click that button. I greatly appreciate it. Also, leaving a comment and a thumbs up or a thumbs down is a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.